Welcome everyone to our latest School of Real Madrid video, where we dive into one of the biggest questions heading into Real Madrid's 2024-2025 season. How will Kylian Mbappe fit at Real Madrid? We'll break this big question down into 5 micro questions to give us the best possible holistic picture of the Mbappe era. Let's break it down. Question number 1. Can he coexist with Vinicius Jr.? Critics who are concerned with Kylian Mbappe's tactical fit at Real Madrid often point to the idea that Real Madrid don't need him. They say that his best position is the left wing, where superstar Vinicius Jr. already occupies. Real Madrid need a striker, they will say. But is this actually a valid concern? Make no mistake, while Mbappe is primarily a left-sided player, he hasn't actually occupied the left wing solely in a long time, and most of his career has coincided with other left wingers. At PSG, he played alongside Neymar, and more recently, Bradley Barcola. Briefly, at the French national team level, we saw him and Karim Benzema occupy the left and left half space interchangeably, and it worked beautifully. Benzema is not a left winger, but the synergy between the two as they flipped through channels on the left in close proximity was breathtaking to watch. Vinicius has long needed support on the left. In the 2022-2023 season, one to largely forget for Real Madrid, the team's predictability made it easy for opponents to defend. Vinicius would receive the ball, either in transition or facing a low block, and immediately be surrounded by 3 or 4 defenders with no help in sight. If he failed to take those players on, Real Madrid's attack would come to a halt, and Vinicius would be criticized. To make matters worse, Ferland Mendy, as great as he is defensively, offered little support in the final third. Meanwhile, Karim Benzema was injured for large stretches of that season, and it wasn't until Ancelotti introduced Rodrigo Goes into the starting lineup and Eduardo Camavinga started to play left back, where Vinicius started getting more help on that left side. Mbappe, as omnipresent as he is, as a generational attacking player, solves that problem. He does not need to be a pure striker or a right winger to elevate the current offense. His 1-2s and link-up play with Vinicius will be impossible to stop. He is an elite and lightning-quick line breaker, useful against low blocks with his unpredictability, and devastating in transition if Ancelotti plays a more counter-attacking style of football. He is also an elite off-ball mover, and while he is not a good aerial threat, he finishes cutbacks at a prolific rate. Mbappe and Vinicius will be interchangeable on the left wing and left half space. It helps also that Vinicius himself has developed to play in more central zones, as Carlo Ancelotti acclimatized him in a 4-4-2 for stretches of that season, where Rodrigo occupied the left wing and Vinicius roamed centrally. A recent example of this is in the first leg of the Champions League quarterfinals against Manchester City, where the two were brilliant, linking up together, and City had major difficulties defending them in transition. Question number 2. How will Real Madrid play with Mbappe? Symmetry is overrated. It is simply a tool teams can use if it helps maximize their strengths while exploiting the opponent. But symmetry is not necessary. When Real Madrid dominated teams in the 2016-2017 season, their attack was extremely left-sided heavy. Toni Kroos, Marcelo, Cristiano Ronaldo, Isco, and Karim Benzema funneled possession through the left, sucking defensive lines into their vortex. Once they had opponents where they wanted them, they would switch it to the weak side, where Dani Carvajal would break a scrambling defense with a cutback or cross into the attackers. There is no question that Real Madrid's strength is, again, towards the left side. It has been for years, and it will continue to be with Mbappe's arrival. Mbappe can overload the left side with Vinicius, where the two can overwhelm teams alongside Jude Bellingham. It will allow Carvajal to be pivotal, again. It will allow Fede Valverde to make devastating drives forward when the pass arrives. The left side being dominant will allow more space to open up on the right side. When the switch arrives, both Valverde and Carvajal will have multiple options as Real Madrid's attackers make surgical, off-ball cuts into the box. Will Real Madrid change their style of play with Mbappe? This is a question we often get on the podcast. The answer is complicated. And don't be surprised if Real Madrid not only don't change their style of play, but even double down on compact counter-attacking football. Real Madrid are already the most devastating transition team in the world, even without Mbappe. With him, they're Thanos, after obtaining the Infinity Rings. What team is going to stop a counterattack of Vinicius, Mbappe, and Bellingham? This question, of course, is rhetorical. Question number 3. What is the starting 11? There are 5 locks in Carlo Ancelotti's front 6. Vinicius Jr, lock. Jude Bellingham, lock. Kylian Mbappe, lock. Fede Valverde, lock. Aurelien Tchouameni, lock. That leaves one position for 2 players, Rodrigo Goes and Eduardo Camavinga. There is no exact answer on who will get the last remaining starting role, and there doesn't necessarily need to be an answer right now. The reality is that Ancelotti has options and can either go with a 4-3-3 or a 4-4-2. Depending on the matchup and opponent, he can go with either. Of course, the reality of the situation is we may not even see Real Madrid's once de gala often. The natural arc of suspensions, injuries, and rotations means that not everyone will always be available, and there is a team far beyond just Camavinga and Rodrigo, and it includes players like Arda Güler, Brahim Diaz, Luka Modric, and Endrick. But the discussion assumes the hypothetical scenario that everyone is healthy in a big game. Those are the matches where this so-called problem arises. If Ancelotti wants to squeeze in Rodrigo, he can shift Bellingham deeper into midfield and put Rodrigo alongside Vinicius and Mbappe in a 4-3-3. If Ancelotti wants to squeeze in Camavinga, he can go back to last season's blueprint, just with different players. Mbappe will line up alongside Vinicius Jr up top, Bellingham can shift behind them in a free role, and Camavinga can assume Kroos's position as a left central midfielder. Whatever the case, Rodrigo and Camavinga are both the most likely candidates to assume the last starting spot, and they will be competing with each other indirectly. Question number 4. Are there defensive concerns? Let's be honest, the PSG experiment with Messi, Mbappe, and Neymar failed, in large part because none of those front 3 defended. They actually looked better structurally when Angel Di Maria, a two-way workhorse, replaced one of the front 3. The PSG failure cannot be replicated at Real Madrid. This current Real Madrid team has a spine, a backbone, with diligent players who work hard defensively. Having said that, it is important to note that Vinicius and Mbappe won't do much defending, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. You want your best attackers to conserve energy, to unleash them like supernovas as they break down defensive lines. Unlike PSG, Real Madrid won't have a third attacker disrupting balance. Whether it's Bellingham, Rodrigo, or Brahim Diaz, all 3 of those players track and press. Ferland Mendy's importance also comes to the fore. Real Madrid did pursue Alphonso Davies, but the reality is with Vinicius and Mbappe ahead on the left, you need someone like Mendy who will ensure the wing is bolted down defensively. Lastly, as we mentioned earlier in the video, if Ancelotti is concerned about the team's defensive structure or lack of cohesive pressing, he can bring the team deeper into a counter-attacking block to compensate. Question number 5. What is Mbappe's scouting report? Mbappe is about as complete as it gets as an attacker. When Mbappe versus Haaland debates started breaking out a couple years ago, many would point out that Haaland is the better goal scorer and more traditional number 9. While that's not untrue, Mbappe is also a lot more versatile than Haaland and can pretty well match his goal scoring numbers, barely coming up short in that regard. In his last 6 seasons at PSG, Mbappe scored 39, 30, 42, 39, 41, and 44 goals respectively. The 2023-2024 season saw Mbappe post a career high in goals. Mbappe is a volume shooter, a trait often overlooked. Superstars who can generate a high amount of take-ons and shots out of nothing are highly valuable. They create chaos and chances from unlikely scenarios, and convert difficult chances that most players would normally have no dream of scoring from. Mbappe has outperformed his XG in each of his past 6 Ligue 1 seasons, which is a trait that all superstar scorers have. Mbappe's only weakness as an attacker is that he is not an aerial threat. He's in the 2nd percentile when it comes to aerials 1. But that one weakness is more than made up by the fact that he can do everything else. He's brilliant getting between the lines on and off the ball. He's an elite passer, dribbler, and scorer. He can progress the ball forward directly and efficiently. Last season, Mbappe led the Big 5 leagues in goals and assists per 90. Needless to say, he also dominated Ligue 1 in every conceivable offensive metric and has been doing so his entire time at PSG. Like one of his idols, Cristiano Ronaldo, Mbappe can also overturn bad games with a moment of brilliance. If there are games he goes missing or has difficulty converting chances, you can still rely on him to have one moment of individual brilliance to turn a game. Kylian does not need to be connected with the overall game, Mauricio Pochettino wrote for The Athletic before the 2022 World Cup. He can be there for 5 or even 10 minutes, not involved with the team, and then just appear, do something amazing, and win the match. If he doesn't touch the ball, he's relaxed. He knows that when the ball reaches him, he is still going to beat his opponent. Thanks for watching this week's School of Real Madrid video. If you like this video, please make sure to subscribe and turn notifications on so that we can continue to grow and put time into making these videos for you to enjoy. Also, don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.